So my name is Petry, and I'm going to talk today about hydration. We're also going to touch a little bit on muscle health, kidney and oxygen supply, and energy levels, because that's what hydration supports, really. But before I get stuck in, just a little bit about me, so you understand why I'm here and talking about this kind of subject. So I had a child with chronic gut conditions, and I was told that this child was going to need lifetime maintenance medication, might grow out of it. All sorts of consultants and specialists had a look through, and every time I asked, why does this child have that? They said, never you mind, he might grow out of it, but he probably will need maintenance medication. So gut specialists, skin specialists, consultants with the highest level of experience, this was the only reply I got. And so I tried to change what we ate. So I made a simple food change, quite a radical one, but fairly simple. I started an autoimmune condition because I read a book, I read the introduction, a little bit of the science behind it, and I thought, well, we haven't tried this yet. 2 weeks later, the symptoms started to disappear, and 4 weeks later, no symptoms left. I thought, this is quite something. I was so impressed by how something as simple as just a radical food change could bring about such a change in health. And I wanted to understand exactly why that happened. I wasn't happy with just a little explanation that came in the book. I wanted to understand the science behind why this happens. So I'm not interested in blogs or opinions that people have. I'm interested in the biochemistry behind it. So what I'm going to talk to you about tonight is all science-based, because I look at why things happen in the body, not what my opinion is about it. Yeah, so just so you understand how that works. And so I did a master's in nutrition science and practice, and I started my own practice in 2020, and I have not looked back. And I'm very passionate about food, as you'll find out, and I focus mainly on real food. That's basically what I do. So what we're going to talk about tonight is hydration, general guidelines, but also some physical notes. I'd like to point out that I am not a medical professional, so I'm not a doctor in any way or shape, so these are general guidelines. And if you need to, if you're making any changes to your diet or your food intake in any way or shape, and you have a health condition, then please consult with your GP or your consultant, because this advice is not medical advice. Yeah. We are going to look at sports hydration. We're going to focus on sweating, dehydration, and then optimal hydration. So just so you understand how these things are sort of interconnected. So let's start with hydration. And as I said earlier, hydration is the most important story when it comes to nutrition. It really is. What I've learned over the years in my practice is that it's really important to do things in the right order. So when it comes to nutrition, the intake starts at the top and comes back out at the bottom. So you always work from the top down, and you always start with hydration, because if hydration is right, then most things will sort of fall into place. There is a lot of work that needs to be done with nutrition if that's out of balance, or if you've got any health conditions or anything. But the most important point is to get the hydration right, because your bowel movements all depend on that. And if your bowel works well, then most things fall into place. So we're not going to talk about that too much, but I'm just very passionate about all that goes in and all that comes out, because it is a really good status update of what's going on. And so hydration gives you a bit of a status update, what's going on when you are exercising. So hydration is also important because our body consists for 60% of water. I mean, that is a lot, right? It has a lot of interesting or important functions. It's a solvent and a catalyst for chemical reactions that are happening in your body. So converting foods or nutrients into different forms of nutrition and make them more available for absorption by your whole system and convert them into energy. Transport of nutrients between major organs, and that includes your muscles, which is relevant here. Carry away waste and toxins, very important as well. But also really relevant for exercise is all that hydration, all that water in your body lubricates your joints and your mucous membranes and your eyes. So your mucous membranes is your entire gastrointestinal tract, but also your lungs. And so your mouth, your lips are the ones that you notice maybe most. And it regulates your body temperature. So sweating is what's really important here. And then your muscle function, so to feel good and energized, but also have nutrients transported to and from your main organs, but your muscles that you need to do exercise. So just to give you a bit of an overview where water sits in the body, isn't it surprising? Your bones, 24% water, brain, 75%, lungs, all of these are really significant. But they're a significant part water, really. So the kidneys play a really important part in this whole hydration story in your body. So your kidneys, they remove the waste and extra fluid. So that helps with your fluid balance. They control the blood pressure. Again, that's really important for your fluid balance. And that comes in really important later on when we look at output and exercise. They make the red blood cells, your kidneys. They initiate that by a hormone signaling that creates your red blood cells in your bone marrow. And so that sort of signal is started also in your kidneys. So, and that's where your oxygen transport to your lungs relies on and other parts of your body. They keep your bones healthy and they control the pH levels. So optimal functioning of your kidneys that process all this water, that filter all this water that you ingest, relies on really good hydration. Also, if you are dehydrated, that might come with kidney stones. It's something to keep in mind. It's not the main reason or the only reason, but it is something to definitely bear in mind. And then also important for exercise is muscle health and energy levels. Again, optimal body fluid levels allow your fuel and nutrient transport to the muscles. Really important, especially when you're mid-exercise or when you do endurance sport. And again, they remove waste and heat from what the muscles produce. And that's where overheating or having the right temperature to maintain your performance comes in. So oxygen, mineral and glycogen transport to the muscle is also reliant on optimal hydration. So that brings us to hydration in general. How much does the average person drink in their life? Does anybody want to throw a number at this? Have I got my number here? I think.
What's the average lifetime?
So we're looking at somebody who is reaching 75 years of age. Oh, there's some quick math going on here.
Yeah, I was at the moment. Yeah, I counted up to 65 and then I stopped. So I can't remember. Can't remember how many litres.
Yeah, I can see some crazy calculating going on. You're going to throw us a number?
No, I've got a wrong number now. That's not
75. 164,000 or something.
It's about just under 55,000 litres.
Oh, litres.
Litres of water is what we drink.
That doesn't mean anything to me because I can't visualise what it even is.
Okay, I'll help you with that. So how much do you think an elephant weighs? How much does an elephant, big grown-up elephant?
14 times the average person.
How many thousand kilos does a big elephant weigh? Throw a number at it. How many? 5 tons. Right. So, and a litre is just about the same weight as a kilo, right? So one elephant weighs 5 tons. So we're talking about, is it 10 elephants in a room is the weight of water that we drink. Can you imagine 10 elephants in here? Or look at what kind of container you need to have water in. That's what one human drinks in a lifetime. So that's a lot of liquid going in. And what you put in really matters.
That's actually less than I thought. Now I can visualise 10 elephants in a room. That's a lot less than I thought in a lifetime.
All right, okay.
Yeah, it's less than I thought as well. In terms of 50 or
Yeah, because I was like thinking of 150,000. 50,000.
Well, it's going by an average of 2 litres
Oh, right, I wait on 6 litres.
per day.
5 to 6 litres.
6 litres a day.
5 to 6 litres a day.
Well, what 6 litres look like a day?
That's, yeah.
Sorry,
Sorry, I was thinking, should be glasses, that's half a litre. It should be 3 litres. Yeah, sorry, I was thinking half a glass is half a litre.
Okay, we'll get to optimal drinking in a moment. So it's a lot of water that goes through our system. So you want to make it worthwhile and work for you, really. So what we're going to do is we're going to get to know your habits, because your starting point is really important for you. Because as I said before, this is very a personal thing. Like, hydration is very different for everybody, and it's important to get your hydration right. So and the first exercise is looking at how much what your hydration is in a day and what it consists of. So that's exercise number 1. I'm going to give you a pen in a moment as well, if you need one. Yeah, and you have to be brutally honest. Don't fill this in to make it look nicer than what it actually is, because different hydration works differently for everybody. So it's important to be honest, because this is your hydration starting point. Whoops. Who needs a pen?
Yes, please.
There we go. No worries. It's not the first time, yeah. I'm not going to give you any marks for this.
Do you count decaf coffee, tea in the coffee tea?
Yeah, just put them in the coffee and tea section. So just circle how many what you consume. Do you want one? There you go. Hang on, I'll give you a pen as well. Voila.
So this is a zero sugar squash. Does this count as water or sweet drinks?
That's a sweet drink.
Okay.
Because it will have sweeteners in, right? If it says no sugar in here, and it tastes sweet.
I guess silent denial about that fact, yes.
Then it's a sweet drink.
Oh, so an energy drink would be a sweet drink?
Yes, that's right.
An electrolyte drink?
With just electrolytes in, okay, that's water. So this is an average day. You could think about today or what you consume, generally speaking. So when you've done that, I'd like you to add up the drinks, the number of drinks, each counting, each stands for 250 milliliters, so that's half a pint, and add them up. So the first two, which is water and herbal teas, add the number of units that you have per day on that little adding up line, and then do the same for all the other drinks and add them up. So what we're looking at the moment at is just your personal hydration, and we're going to work our way to optimal hydration, because it's really important to look at how you hydrate at the moment before you even go anywhere near sports hydration. It's really important to build the basics up first before you look at how specifically to hydrate for sports. That's why we're doing this particular exercise. So, show of hands. Who gets to 6 to 8 glasses on the first amount of intake? So water and herbal teas. 6 to 8 glasses per day. So that's 2 people, that's good. Starting with some good hydration. Can I just ask 4 units? 2 to 3? Okay, so there's a little bit of work to be done then. Of hydration. Can I just ask, what did you put down? 9. Oh, right, so you're above 8 even. Oh, right, okay, that's really good hydration. And that's just water and herbal teas?
That was water and herbal tea today.
Right, okay.
4 of them, which is probably, yeah, I've been focused on it a little bit the last few weeks, so it's probably increased to what I was drinking.
What you had before, okay. So I'm not going to expose what your sweet and coffee drinks are. That's your personal kind of, you can keep that to yourself. But the focus is on...
Sorry, is that bad? Coffee is bad?
It isn't necessarily bad.
Why did you say not?
Because some people don't want to maybe share that they have 6 or 8 coffees a day.
Okay.
And I don't want to necessarily expose that. It's just for information purpose for yourself and what you work towards. So we're going to look at optimal hydration, and then I'll put that into context with those kind of drinks. So optimal hydration is 1.5 to 2 liters of water per day. That's 6 to 8 glasses. That's sort of the general guideline. Okay? And if you want to make that a little bit more personal, then you look at 30 to 40 milliliters per kilogram of body weight. That is, so if you weigh 50 kilograms or 7.8 stones, that's 1.5 to 2 liters would be this calculation. Or if you're 70 kilos, you would try and aim for 2.1 and 2.8 liters of water. Yeah? That is optimal. And if you have a lot of coffee and tea, those are diuretic drinks, which means that they pull water out of your system. And so if you enjoy coffee, I always recommend have 1 or 2 cups of coffee or tea in the morning before lunch, because they also may prevent you from falling asleep properly or having a good night's rest, because they're also stimulants. And they can work, depending on how fast your liver metabolizes the chemicals in coffees and teas, they can stay in your system between 8 and 20 hours. But literally depending on how your liver works, and that is very different for everybody. So there are no strict guidelines, but generally speaking, diuretic or stimulating drinks have 1 or 2 before lunch, and then after that just stick with things that are sort of hydrating rather than dehydrating or stimulating.
The active ingredient in coffee and tea is caffeine.
That's correct.
So therefore, this is my simple logic. I drink decaffeinated coffee and decaffeinated tea.
Yes.
So does that have the same diuretic effect?
It has for some people. Again, it just depends on your liver. It has less of a stimulating effect because there's only 4 grams or milligrams of caffeine in decaf. So there's still a little bit in there, and some people will feel the effect as well. So you have to experiment around with it a bit. There is no exact science that works for all. And it depends also what else is going on. Are you taking medication alongside any caffeinated drinks, or what else is going on health-wise? All the bits of chemistry, or all the foods that you put into your body are information, and they're basically chemistry, biochemistry information, and your body does something with it or other. So generally speaking, there is a diuretic effect, less of a stimulant effect in decaf drinks. Does that make sense?
Is there anything you do to dampen? So, for example, if I race in the evening or an afternoon, I
Yeah.
have to have a caffeine gel, because that can just bother me.
Well, that's
Obviously, then
why.
I'm buzzing at night when I'm trying to go to sleep.
Yeah, well, that's why people use caffeinated drinks to extend their performance, because it takes away the feeling of fatigue. Basically, that's why you take it.
Yes.
Is there anything to dampen it? You could try and take something like milk thistle to stimulate your liver detox, but you'd have to be careful there. Leaving it out is the best way. Finding a better hydration so you don't feel fatigued and you can perform longer. That's how caffeine is used, really, to take away the feeling of...
Yeah, I thought I'd just ask you.
Yeah. It depends what your liver does. I know there are people who drink coffee at 9 o'clock at night and merrily go to bed half an hour later and fall asleep. I mean, that's the exception, not the average sort of reaction to coffee.
Typical on Wednesday night, I might do a race at 7 o'clock.
Right.
Caffeine gel around that time, and then I find it hard to get to sleep on Wednesday night.
You would absolutely, because in a caffeine gel you would have like 210 milligrams of caffeine in there. So that's a lot. That's way more than in a cup of coffee. A cup of coffee has like 50 milligrams or something. So you wouldn't, I would look at a different way of staying awake, or feeling more awake to perform, and maybe half the amount. Or just a cup of coffee, just to cut down back on the caffeine.
Espresso and some gummies.
So as I said before,
Sorry, this is confusing me. I'm looking 1.5 to 2 litres of water. per
Yes.
day. Is that for somebody who's 30 to 40 mil per?
So there's two ways of looking at it. You can either
It's all
take
right,
this
I've just misread
guideline.
it. I have this wonderful way of skipping words in sentences.
Okay.
And making the sentence fit what I'm thinking.
Oh, I see, right.
So-
Well, just ask, that's fine.
Yeah, yeah.
We
So
can
I've
clarify.
suddenly now I've spoken about it, I've looked at it and went, oh, I'm missing,
Yeah.
I've missed a big chunk of that.
So there are two different theories, basically. So this is more of a scheduled kind of more of an accurate thing. And
Yeah.
for women, it is much better to go on a bit more of an accurate calculation because of our hormone levels. They really affect our water management and water metabolism. And often we might not feel thirsty. So it's good to know how much do I as a person, Lynn.com weighing so many kilos, how much should I sort of aim for? I mean, it always remains a personal affair, but that's a sort of a starting point. And the same for the 1.5 to 2 liters. Because there are some really important considerations to look at these general guidelines. So gender, as I said before, women metabolize water differently than men. And your body weight. So somebody who weighs 100 kilos needs 3 to 4 liters of water. And somebody who weighs 50, only 1.5 to 2. Body weight really does matter because you carry around a different weight, you move differently, you need more energy when you move, or you burn more energy, which creates a different kind of heat in your body. So it's really important to sort of consider your body weight. Activity level has a massive effect as well. So looking at your general output, daily output, you exhale 300 to 400 milliliters a day. If you mouth breathe, that increases by 42%. Yeah? So it's really important to understand how you breathe and how that affects your hydration. You sweat about 450 milliliters per day. That's without doing anything much. That's sort of average sort of respiration of your skin. And then urine, approximately 1.5 liters, and feces about 200 milliliters. So that's a lot of water going out. That's a good 2.5 liters going out. So if you look at how much do I need to put in, the equation doesn't have to be exactly, but again, there's a couple of things to look at that help you understand what's my hydration, how is it right or not. So respiration rate, but also how you breathe out. Like again, is it nose breathing? Is it mouth breathing? And how is it controlled breathing, or is it more erratic? Are you almost hyperventilating when you're exercising? Everybody's got a different style and a rate. So that's worth understanding. Air temperature and humidity make a massive difference how much hydration you need, whether it's the 1.5 to 2 liters or whether you actually should up that by 1/2 liter or 1 liter. And then, as I said before, mouth breathing, I'd already covered that. So that's one of the things that a lot of people overlook, how I breathe. Do I need to take that into consideration? Definitely. And if you are a mouth breather, and if you do sleep with like breathing through your mouth, it's really worthwhile to become aware of that and see if you can make a change to that. I mean, some people tape up their mouth to get to nose breathing. If you've got a tongue tie, that needs resolving first before you can actually nose breathe properly. And then learning to do some basic breathing exercises to get started with breathing through your nose, but it's a worthwhile change and it has an effect on everything. The whole anatomy of your face changes if you breathe through your nose, and it changes how you chew your food, and how you chew your food affects everything that follows with your digestion. So it's really important. Good food sources for hydration. So obviously water, herbal teas or fruit teas. Start the day with a large glass of water, because when you wake up, that's when you're most dehydrated. And always have a bottle of water with you. So I'll repeat those things because they are really, really important. And then you can eat your water as well. There's some really good hydrating food. Soups is an obvious one, but cucumber, lettuce, tomatoes, watermelon, there's some really good amounts of fluids in there as well. So don't overlook that when you look at how much fluid do I need in a day. Look at what you eat as well. So that brings us to sports hydration. I'm just going to have a quick look at my notes to make sure that I'm not forgetting anything. And we're going to look, as I said before, at sweating, dehydration, and then sports hydration specifically, what strategies you might want to put in place and what to put in your bottle. So, sweating, that's the big thing that happens with sports, right? When you start to move, you also start to sweat, because 75% of your energy used is actually converted into heat. As soon as you start moving, it's only 25% that goes towards the actual mechanical use of energy to move your muscles and everything else, but 75% is heat production. And that's expelled to maintain an optimal body temperature. Body temperature is key. If you overheat, you're not going anywhere anymore, right? And your body is completely and utterly designed to maintain an optimal temperature of 37 to 38 degrees. So what it does, when the body temperature goes up with all that muscle movement, the water from your blood plasma is transported to your skin to expel that heat. So sweating is really, really important in that heat balance. And so it varies between 0.5 liter and 2.5 liter of water that you might sweat out per hour. Again, depending on how hot it is around you, what kind of exercise you do, how well trained you are, whether you're a beginner or well-seasoned athlete, all those things have an influence. And then losing fluid is sweat means that your blood volume goes down and your heart rate goes up and you have less energy for muscles. So basically what is happening is that competition, the blood plasma competition between muscles, so power output, and skin, which is the cooling function, happens while you are sporting. And the more hydrated you are, like optimal hydration, not overhydration, the better your body can take over and perform. You know, everything is tickety-boo and runs smoothly if you're well hydrated, because you can keep cooling down and you can keep transporting nutrients to the muscles and away from the muscles and keep that rolling over. So that's what's happening when your exercise is in sweating. So it's that evaporation and that metabolic production that are competing, and you want to keep that well balanced. That's basically what is happening there. So if the balance is off and the blood plasma levels decrease and you're basically sweating more, and your blood plasma levels decrease, that's when you're going to have a case of dehydration, and it starts usually very slowly. But there's signs that you can observe so that you know what is happening, right? So 1 to 2% of dehydration results in loss of energy, headaches, and loss of concentration, but fairly mildly. You can just keep functioning, and you probably don't realize that you're a little bit dehydrated. But also it affects your stools, and you won't know that while you're sporting, but afterwards when you try and have like a nice elimination and things don't run smoothly, that's when you realize, aha, I am dehydrated. So habit number 1 to take away is ask yourself when you feel tired or have a headache or loss of concentration, and this might just happen in the office after a couple of hours of work. The first question you ask yourself is, when have I last had a glass of water? Yeah, that's really important to get yourself familiar with that question. And the second habit is start the day with a glass of water. I know I've already said that, but it's really, really important, because hydration is, as I said before, absolutely key. And again, I haven't mentioned this before yet, but when you start to look at how you take in fluid and the amounts, and you start working with this, it takes your body about 3 to 4 months to be properly hydrated. So if you come from a state where you drink generally too little in a day, so let's say somewhere between 4 and 5 glasses, your starting point is dehydrated. And it takes a while for your body to adjust to a proper level of hydration. That means that most days, like 6 out of 7 or 5 out of 7, you hydrate really, really well. And the other 2, okay. Yeah, so it's not something that happens over a day. You think, oh, I've had enough to drink today, I'm fine, I'm topped up. It doesn't work quite like that. It takes a while for your body to have that good, well-hydrated status. Yeah.
It's also, I think, harder as we get older because we lose our
Yes.
trigger.
That's right, and for women that's even more significant. But it is also relevant to men. So let's have a look at dehydration and performance then. So when you're on your bike and you do a sportive or something or other, and hydration happens a bit more radical or a bit more aggressive, let's say. So 2% of dehydration, that means you've lost 1.4 kilograms of your 70 kilos in body weight. That's 2% of dehydration. That means your aerobic performance and your cognitive function start to go down. Yeah? When you are dehydrated 4%, so when you've lost 2.8 liters of water, you will feel nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, and severe headaches, basically. So these are the signs to look out for. And then 5%, then you lose about 30% of your performance or more. Yeah, so that's long-term exercise, more than 90 minutes. Yeah.
Why on earth would you get diarrhea if you're a bit dehydrated? You think you'd get constipated?
Yeah, you would.
Why would your body be chucking water?
I think your body has like a sort of a stress reaction where it tries to absorb the water it can get, and it's like a stress reaction basically. And it chucks it all and then it expels it. Like when you become really unwell, you might also build up more sort of toxic load, and it can be a reaction to that, and your body then expels that as a matter of urgency. Yeah.
So when you talked a slide or two ago about that you might notice the impact of being dehydrated on your stools, that could be
it's more
fluid,
yeah.
stools as opposed to constipation.
Yeah, it could be that, but that's more of a, this is what happens during extreme sport, not like sort of gentle dehydration. That's not when that happens. So this is like related to performance, really. Yeah. But there is a bit of a controversial discussion going on where people are also looking at their weight and performance. If they're lighter, they might be faster. So in some sports, there's no notice of reduced performance when there's a 3% of dehydration. But they are generally speaking sports that are not endurance sports. Yeah? And also this happens more with people that are professional athletes. So not somebody who trains occasionally or on a much lower level. Then you will feel these signs of dehydration. But again, if you are a professional athlete and you look really well after yourself and your hydration levels are generally speaking optimal, then whilst you're performing, a 3% loss of your body fluid will not affect your performance in the same level. Yeah? Right. So, sports hydration strategies. Some really simple strategies to keep well hydrated. The first one is keep an eye out on your output. And what we're aiming for is, this doesn't do it. It doesn't work on here. Say again?
The top three.
Yeah, that's what we're looking for. Yeah. Light colours and also volume. If you've got like a proper wee, let's call it that, then they usually will come in that kind of colour. If you've got a great output, volume output, and it is in that color, you do need to seek medical advice because that isn't right. That doesn't add up at all. So, but have a look at the color of your of when you urinate, and that's a really good indication of how well hydrated you are. And that goes throughout life. So, hydration isn't something that you just look at for performance or training. It is for life, really. Yeah.
Unless you've eaten asparagus and then it might change colour.
Good point, well made. Yeah, people who... Beetroot, yes, really good one. Some supplements as well, they will give discoloration, but you will know that in the context of what you've ingested, just like with asparagus and beetroot. Again, then you look at volume. Yeah. Other strategies is prehydrate. So the general guideline, so it's a general guideline, so you just hydrate throughout the day. You stick with your 30 to 40 milliliters per kilogram of body weight, or your 1.5 to 2 liters, whatever fits you best. So that's what you do as a pre-hydration, because you would drink that throughout the day, the 2 liters. You don't drink them in the morning and that's you done. We're not camels. We need hydration throughout the day. That's a good way of pre-hydrating. As I said before, good habits throughout life, or you do a scheduled version where it's 5 to 10 milliliters per kilogram of body weight in the 2 to 4 hours prior to exercise. So let me have a look. Have I got... no, I didn't write down how much that is for somebody's body weight, but that's fairly easy to calculate. So then during exercise, there's quite a bit of discussion going on that the guidelines are when you're thirsty or have a drink schedule. So generally speaking, the advice at the moment is just drink when you're thirsty, but for us women, that doesn't work. Because again, depending on what stage in the cycle we are, we might not feel that thirsty because our hormones regulate blood plasma levels and they just go down a bit and you think, oh, or go up a bit, and then you might not feel thirsty. So it's really important, again, to keep an eye on your urination and then use a drink schedule. And for women, that is 7 to 9 milliliters per kilogram of body weight. So somebody who is 60 kilos needs about 400 to 550 milliliters of water per hour during exercise. And again, this is a ballpark figure. So on the handout, I've changed that for men as well. And so during exercises, when you're thirsty or your drink schedule. So this is the general guideline, 400 to 800 milliliters. But for women specific, I would use this as a starting point. So
the other thing is if you do it on thirst and you're racing or you're concentrating or you're riding in groups, you don't register that thirst because you're too busy thinking about all the other things. So for me, that's quite that one doesn't really work.
No.
You've got to use you're going to drink this much per hour.
But it has been researched, this for women, this formula.
Yeah.
And that is really a starting point. Again, you need to look again at temperature, body weight, all those kind of, well, the body weight's taken into account in there, but
that one works for me really well, but if I did it by thirst, because it just wouldn't register.
I have to do it on a timer. I do it every 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you know that works for you, then you need to stick with that.
The question, that's something I've been debating with friends of race with. So if you're doing a race that's say 50 minutes,
Yeah.
do you take water on that race or not? Can you get away with it? It obviously depends on temperature, I guess, as well.
You could, if you are well hydrated to start with.
Right.
You could.
Because sometimes on Friday boat race, I'm having a drink halfway through, like about 20-25 minutes in, just having a sip.
Have you noticed a difference?
Not enough to say that it's definitively makes a difference or not.
Again, it's experiment with it. But generally speaking, a gentle exercise under 2 hours, or where okay, I know what my output is, I know what my energy levels are for a 50-minute ride, that distance, you've tested your output, you know exactly what you're working with, you know what kind of sleep you've had, how much caffeine you've taken beforehand. And if you take caffeinated drinks, I know they're dehydrating or diuretic, but again, if you're used to caffeine, it will be less diuretic than if you're not used to it. But again, it's very individual. Some people will never have a let off, and other people can get used to it. So another debate is that another way of finding out how much hydration you need is that to weigh yourself before and after exercise to understand your personal sweat loss. But there's pros and cons with this, because you need to consider again, your urine color, your body weight loss from fuel burned is also part of that weight loss. And then there's residual fluid or food left in your gut consumed during an exercise. You'd also have to take that into consideration. So it's a little bit more tricky, but if you're really dedicated, this is a way that you can use as a starting point again to understand, what do I need?
You also need to measure your sweat loss so you know how much salt is in the amount of water that you're...
Yes, well, some people have really salty sweat, other people not so. So again, that's an individual kind of thing as well. But I'll give you some guidelines for that in a moment. Let me just see what have I got, because we need to have a look. Yes, calculate your personal sports hydration. So there's a formula on your handout there that you can use for that. Again, it's a starting point. So you need to put in how much you weigh.
Just you've got short legs as well, so it sticks in your knees.
Do you want to sit on the benches? Or?
I'm going to stand anyway.
You're comfy like that.
And do you think
So you can do this at home, but this is the formula that you can apply to calculate it. So this is for optimal general hydration, and this is sports specific. So how much to drink during exercise. So what I've done here is, generally speaking, the understanding is that men consume about 20% more water than women. So I have upped that formula. I've made it for men, but it is originally a women's formula. But if you wanted to try and find guidelines that work for you or to start working with, this is what you start working with. Does that make sense? And then I've also put underneath, are you a mouth breather? Take that into consideration. It's really interesting. In the Tour de France, you see different ways of working. People that have got plugs in their nose, and then people who basically don't open their mouth. There's different techniques going on there. So,
Big nostrils, mate. Big noses. A
Great
great benefit.
nostrils, because your mouth's bigger than your nose.
well, funny enough though, when you breathe in through your nose is designed for optimal oxygen absorption in your body. You have a much better oxygen absorption if you breathe through your nose. Yeah? I don't know exactly why, but it must have to do with what's available in your nose, in the anatomy of your nose, to be able to absorb it. So I'm not a breath as expert or specialist. I did read a book on breathing. That's where I've come across it. And in my field, some people do work with breathing. So I've come across some bits and pieces of research there. And oxygen levels are much more optimal in people who breathe in through their nose. So there's been quite a bit of research. I mean, if you're interested in that, that's worth looking up. Yeah. Right then. So again, as I said before, always consider the type of exercise, duration of exercise, temperature, humidity in the atmosphere, and also altitude makes a big difference. So your fluid loss is much higher when the temperatures are very low in minus conditions than in average conditions. So that's something to take into account as well. Yeah, so depending on where you train, where you exercise, where you live, take that into account. So this is the interesting bit. So what to put in that bottle then? What to put in the bottle? So it depends a little bit. For low exercise, under 2 hours, I recommend maintain general hydration. And you could get away with no hydration if it's a short-term exercise. So under 60 minutes, possibly under 2 hours, but it depends on how intense your training and exercise is. Because if you sweat a lot, you have to replenish. But for exercise over 2 hours, where you lose possibly 3 to 4 grams of natrium, which is really important for, again, your fluid balance, it's important to hydrate with a... Natrium. Oh, I've read this in a Dutch book. Natrium is nitrate. Nitrate, sorry. Nitrate is the... Yeah, nitrate is the...
Simon would have known that because he can speak Dutch and his mum's from there. So.
Who's that?
My mate Simon.
Oh, cool.
He can speak Dutch.
Yeah, nitrate, sorry guys. Anyways, that's when you hydrate with a hypotonic drink. I'll explain to you in a minute why that is. and after exercise, you resume general hydration alongside food intake. So this is the general guidelines of what to look at, what to put in your bottle. So, and again, also, what you need to take, habit 3, put food in your pocket and fluid into your bottle. It's really, really important. And so a hypotonic drink is one that has got that has a lower osmolality than your blood. I'm going to try and explain this to you guys, okay? So the composition and the concentration of your drink matters because it all has to do with the density, let's say, of your blood plasma and its osmolality. That's what I mean more by density. And because 95% of your fluid gets absorbed in the small intestine, and it does that if it has the right composition. And that means it needs co-transporters, sodium and glucose, to be absorbed into your body. And if it has less osmolality, it will be absorbed by osmosis, let's say, into your body. And that's what needs to happen. If the osmolality is higher, which happens when drinks are too high in carbohydrates, it's too thick, basically. It's much thicker than your blood plasma, and that means that hydration is pulled out of your blood plasma into your gut. And if it's too thick, it will happen in a rush to make sure it's dealt with, and that can result in diarrhea. So if you've got sports gels that are jam-packed with all sorts of sugars that your body can't absorb because they're too thick, basically, they're not diluted enough, so the osmolality is too high, that affects your hydration. In fact, you might end up dehydrated. So some of the sports gels that you might take, rather than give you energy, they will cost you energy, and a lot of it, and you'll get really heavy legs and your body is going to overheat because you don't have enough hydration anymore in you to carry the sweat to your skin to cool you off. So that's that competition for your blood plasma that happens, and it can be really affected by bad hydration. And that's why the composition of what's in your bottle really, really matters. So it depends on what kind of level of exercise you do, whether you need it, and then if you exercise longer, especially intense or more than 2 hours, what you put in your bottle really matters, and you must focus on hydration more than on food. Food is important, but it's better to have that in your pocket in a different version.
So you'd recommend splitting food,
Yes.
carbs separate to
Yes.
fluid?
Absolutely.
I've noticed that because if I'm going a long ride with multiple hours, I might have one bottle which has got electrolyte and one bottle's got like SIS beta fuel in it. And I've noticed if I had too much of the beta fuel and not enough of the other, it's like doing exactly what
You're going to overheat,
correct.
and your muscles won't get what you need, and you're going to end up with a bad belly behind a bush if you're unlucky. That's basically what happens, and that is chemistry. That really is what happens, and you will find lots of stories of what happens when people take the wrong kinds of sports hydration. And these gels, I'd be very, very careful, especially if there's fructose in there, because your liver wants that. It's got first dabs on fructose, so it's not really going to do what it needs to do unless you've got real raw honey. That behaves differently in the body because there's also enzymes that come with it. So the cofactors, as I call them here, the co-transporters for that kind of sugar are different. But we're going to talk about that when we talk about carbohydrates. So hydration is important. So habit number 3, put food in your pocket and fluid in your bottle. And on that, I would like to say that, when we're going to talk about different, like good fats and good carbohydrates and proteins as well, when you look at your breakfast or the food intake before an event, I would like to say every breakfast that you eat is a pre-event one. Don't think, I can eat cereals and sugary toasts and all these kinds of things on my normal days. There's an event, now I must eat, I don't know what, even pasta for breakfast or something.
No, I eat sugary cereals before the event and eggs on the other days.
I wouldn't quite.
Can I just come back to this
Yeah.
concentration of what's in the drink?
Yeah.
Because on every sports drink, or every powder that makes up a sports drink, they have a recommended ratio.
Yes.
Now, maybe I'm being naive, but I'm assuming that they have tested the concentration so they're appropriate. So, if you've got carbohydrates in there, it will be in your drink. Then you're going to be able to absorb it. Otherwise, why take
What's
it?
the point?
So it's like you're talking about beta fuel. I use beta fuel, and I haven't had a big issue with it. It hasn't given me diarrhea and all the rest of it. So it's like for me to then start questioning those ratios. There'd be a lot of reading around to get.
A good example would be like SAS Go Electrolyte has some carbohydrates in it,
Yeah.
as well as electrolyte. But you would assume if it says, I can't remember, is it 2 scoops per 750?
Yeah.
You would
There
go
is a
under
balance,
40, under 40 grams. Definitely under 40 grams.
Yeah, there's about 30, they said there's 30 grams in that.
Yeah, they are.
Oh, it's big fuels.
It feels 120.
120, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
because
a
it's
rocket
simple as well,
fuel.
yeah.
But Caroline Alden got beta fuel, tasted it, had exactly that gave it all to us. Fantastic. Result.
So
that's
if-
why I had the cherry flavour.
Yeah, but Morton can't touch it with
Yeah.
both.
If something works for you, you've tried and tested it, and you really trust it, and you work, everything is tickety-boo, then if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Right.
But if that isn't right for you, and you've got symptoms, and you can't perform, then look for something else. And this way is like a really simple way of starting to work out what's good for you and what isn't. And I'd always recommend to go with real foods, and a lot of top sporters are coming back to that same sort of conclusion, because and all these sports gels, they vary. Some of them have got a lot of things in there that really upset your gut balance, and if you don't look after your gut will not be able to look after you anymore, but that's for a different talk. But it's really important to be picky and choosy what you put in, the information that you put in, because it will determine what kind of energy you will get out. But we're all different. Like, our gut is as different as our fingerprint for everyone. So you've got to work, that's what you're working with, basically. Your lovely microbiome, but that's not for today. So I've brought a general hypotonic sports drink. So something that you can have during exercise. So the basic recipe is, that's 240 milliliters of water. That's your starting quantity, but if you need more, then you just up that. These are just the proportions of that drink. So basically, you need some muscovado sugar, which has really good amounts of potassium in it, actually. So you don't need to buy that.
You need to put, I don't bother putting sugar really, definitely in the drink.
Because
Well, if you've got carbohydrate is broken down to sugars anyway.
that is the sugar. So you need them as transporters so that your intestine can absorb the hydration, because water sometimes can just go through. You need transporters to get the liquids from your gut into your body, basically, that they're absorbed. That's why you need glucose and sodium and potassium. So basically, one simple tablespoon, I mean, you can measure it with a weighing scale if you want to get it exactly 10 grams, 7 to 10 grams. And then you put, because muscovado sugar is the most natural form of sugar. It's not bleached and it's not nothing. The minerals are still in there, but it doesn't have enough sodium in. So you add a pinch of sodium as well. And I'm talking literally a pinch. So I would always use a natural salt. So either a rock salt, like a Himalayan pink salt, or a sea salt. Because again, that has got minerals in it as well. So it's way more hydration. So that is how you make your own sports drink. Done. That's how quickly and easy and simple, cost-effective way of... Well, funny you should ask. I have made this, and I've put some lemon in this as well. And this is for you guys to taste.
Cool.
Anybody want to give it a try? So, post-exercise hydration, again, consider your urine volume and color. That's always going to be, I know I've said it a couple of times, but that's always your best indicator of common sense, and how you feel if you've got any symptoms. Use thirst as a guidance as well. When you are finished with hydration, eat real foods, carbohydrates and protein post exercise, and hydrate well alongside that. You could have a post exercise hydration drink, but you might as well eat real foods. And if you hydrate properly alongside that, then your body will absorb everything that it needs to absorb from all those components combined. Foods work synergistic, they work together. What you combine works together. And if you choose real foods, then your body will actually recognize what it's eating. So that's the problem with a lot of, processed fats especially. It will completely upset your fat metabolism because your body doesn't recognize what's in margarine or heated, hydrolyzed, mixed, colored, dyed sunflower seed oil. That's not recognizable to your body. So your body wants foods it recognizes. So the more natural and real they are, the better you will be able to work with that, or your body will be. And your gut will thank you. All the many million gut bacteria that live in there will be very thankful to you. So, these are the takeaways. Always have water with you on the go. Just pop a little bottle. Those are like Passata bottles. The glass, that means no plastic will leach into them. Sometimes you can't avoid taking plastic, that's fine. But when you can, choose glass. Especially when you have sports activities, make sure you have a bottle of water visible at your workplace so that you drink regularly. To get through like 1.5 liters or 2 liters, you need 2 of those kind of bottles, one in the morning, one in the afternoon.
One good way, because I found I really struggle, I don't get thirsty, it's very rare if I get thirsty even when it's warm, is to drink more water, to put lemon in it, slice a lemon.
Wonderful.
It's a lot more thirst quenching.
Well, let's make hydration enjoyable with flavors, and that's exactly what you said. Some people like hot drinks only, some people cold drinks only. Work with what you enjoy, because everything that you put in your mouth is supposed to be an enjoyable thing. Don't eat things for the sake of them. Eat them because the taste is good, because then you will digest them better and the experience is much better. And so get to know your optimal personal hydration. That's like the main takeaway, really. So that, again, information given is an overview of general guidelines only. Personal hydration needs may vary greatly from person to person. And if you need to make changes, please consult with a medical doctor or consultant. Thank you.